The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. And I am joined today by Keith Klain, CEO of Dorian Jones, and he is going to be presenting a webinar on breaking the poverty cycle with software testing. And if you have any questions for Keith, we've created a discussion over on Test Huddle, and you can head over there and type in all your questions, and Keith will be available to answer them directly after the webinar. I'm just going to share the link with you now to that discussion, and you'll see in your chat box there's a link there, and if you follow that link after the webinar, we will see you over on Test Huddle. So now let me hand you over to Keith. Hello, Keith.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? Great. So, quick introduction about who I am and what we're doing. So, if you haven't heard of me before, my name is Keith Klain. I'm the co-CEO of Dorian Jones, which is a technology consulting firm in New York. Prior to that, I've spent about 20 years in the software testing business, various roles, either as a consultant or working directly with investment banks or financial services firms. And how I got involved with Perscolis, which is a workforce development nonprofit based in New York. When I was working for Barclays, my last job before I started and joined the testing practice at Dorian Jones, I had been working for the CIO of Barclays Investment Bank and Wealth Management, which is a gentleman named Joe Squeri, who was on the board of directors and still is of Perscolis, and he had asked me to get involved with Perscolis in doing a technology talk with them and just coming out and doing kind of a meet and greet, talking about software testing and what we do and how they might learn some stuff from what we do at Barclays and the industry in general. So I went out to the Bronx and did my talk and was just grilled for a long time after the talk by the students, was blown away by the quality of the people they were bringing into the program there.
Hello,
and
Keith.
I remember when I was heading back to, yes.
Sorry for cutting in there. We don't happen to see your slides there in front of us, and you might need to click on the show my screen option.
Oh, hang on. Oh, got it.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Are we
great.
there now?
We're all set now. Yeah. Sorry for cutting you off there. Yeah, and sorry
Perfect.
to you attendees there as well. So back to you, Keith.
That's all right. Fantastic. Got me for a wonderful recording. Great. So to catch up then, I remember heading back to Barclays at the time and thinking, boy, if I could teach these folks on how to teach software, I would not have to travel so much to India and Singapore and everywhere else.
When you get Kim's looks, you let me know.
So, Dara, again, is everyone else seeing that thing flash on their screen?
I'm not seeing any flash right there. What should I be seeing here?
Okay, well, then just be on mine. The GoToMeeting thing is flashing like mad all over my screen, so I just want to make sure no one else can see it.
Oh, yes. No, the control panel is just us.
Okay, great. So, at the same time I met the folks at Perscolis, I was also doing an internal analysis of the kind of major offshoring program that we had done at Barclays, which was, when we got through the details, it counted for about 200, 250 roles that were still, in this day and age, supporting New York-only projects. So these were people who were in Singapore and India and Eastern Europe who were working shift work purely to support U.S.-centric time zones. So the idea came to me that, if we taught these folks how to test software, we could relocate a bunch of these jobs back to the U.S. and have a skilled workforce along with my test leads based in New York that could support our U.S. projects. In concert with that, one of my subsequent trips out to the Bronx, the president of Perscolis, a gentleman named Plinio Ayala, showed me the second half of their first of the floor that they occupy in the Bronx, and it was basically unused raw space. And so the idea struck me, well, why don't we turn this into a testing center, and we could house the folks here. So I put together a budget and a project plan for it, pitched it to the Barclays management team, pitched it to the Perscolis board. Everybody liked the idea, and then things went different in Barclays in terms of budget being cut for the program, and financial priorities shifted, and it never really got off the ground. So subsequently, we had started the software testing education program at the time, so we started the training program, and the first cohort of students that went through the program were so successful in finding jobs. I went back and said, well, hey, look, Plinio and I were not going to give up on developing this. Would they be interested if I left my job at Barclays to start this up as an actual business? And so I, again, coincidentally got introduced to Matthew Doran, who had been running Dorian Jones since 2010. And we got introduced, and I pitched him on the idea. He loved it. And I then, I believe it was November last year, left Barclays. And when I finished my garden leave, joined as the head of the testing practice for Dorian Jones to start this up. So in the same line of the folks who build those razors, shaving razors, I love the idea so much I bought the company. So that brings us up to how I got involved with Perscolis, Barclays, and Dorian Jones. So what I want to talk about specifically today, because Dorian Jones does a lot of stuff aside from just building this urban development center, but today is specifically just to talk about our partnership with Perscolis and the Urban Development Center. The other disclaimer I want to make regarding comments I'm going to make and opinions I'm going to throw out there in regards to workforce development and poverty alleviation and everything else. I'm not an expert on corporate social responsibility, workforce development, nonprofits, or anything of the like. I have had a very intense but brief exposure to that world in terms of government programs, workforce development, urban renewal, and it's been short but intense. But I want to be very clear that what I'm going to say today is my opinion on what I think is working and what's not working. So, with that, obviously, poverty is still a large problem in the U.S., and I think complicating that is what the Department of Labor calls their U6 report, which also includes underemployment. And I think since 2008, with the massive layoffs we've seen in what I consider to be my area of expertise in terms of building technology and testing technology, is in what I call enterprise IT. And this is not technology firms building technology. This is non-technology firms building technology. So banking, financial services, insurance, their core business is not technology, but yet they build systems and build services based on technology for their clients or internally. And if you add in the folks that have been underemployed, meaning you're getting your cocktail served to you by a lawyer, or you're getting your car washed by someone with a computer science degree, people who want to work but the employment opportunities are not there, that probably doubles the size of the unemployment rate, just in the U.S. alone, probably putting it just around 12%, which is a huge issue, obviously. And one of the underpinnings of the Perscolis ethos is that the most effective poverty alleviation strategy is a good paying job, one that's skills based and people can transfer those skills to other jobs. In concert with that, so those are a lot of the folks that we're targeting. And if you look at Perscolis and their demographic, it's different than some of the other nonprofits you might have heard of in regards to how they train folks and who comes into their program. They are not an internship like a Year Up or an Empower. They're not targeting exclusively 18 to 22-year-olds. They have a much broader demographic. So we've recently been putting together a project for a large financial services institution, and most of the folks actually have college degrees that have come through Perscolis for that program. So it's very different to what you might have in your mind about the folks who are coming through that. In concert with that, as we all know who work in software testing, our business grows year on year on year, and it's a massive market that the uptick, it's outstripping actually the growth in other technology sectors by a pretty good clip, and actually in financial services, BFSI, it's actually growing at a clip that's higher than the rest of software testing within technology. So it is a growth industry. There's lots of opportunities with the Internet of Things, or whatever buzzword bingo you'd like to play. There's the explosion of the app culture that needs to get tested, and you've seen people getting very creative and being very successful in ways to try and solve that problem with crowd testing, crowdsourced testing, and people have been very successful in trying to do that. So there's a good growth trajectory for getting involved in software testing. There's also, I think, and I'm going to be slightly nationalistic speaking specifically about the politics within the U.S. right now around this issue, as there is a pressure to reduce exposure to certain other areas of the country, things that are going on in Eastern Europe right now. There's a lot of politics around reshoring jobs. There's a lot of politics around working with returning veterans that you can take advantage of in terms of a corporate social responsibility aspect. So people are more willing to look at onshore alternatives than they might have been even 5 years ago. So we started with the software testing education program, and what we found was that there was actual industry interest in this, and that clients were actually very interested in if this could be run as a service. So what we did was we formed a partnership with Perscolis, and we're both focusing on what we're good at. I'll talk about what those things are in a little bit. And we've seen the demand probably in the next, we just launched the service, and the facility is still being built, but we just launched the service in February, and we're probably seeing 12 to 18 month growth of 450 to 500 folks into the Bronx right now, and which is going to have an immense social impact on that area. So Perscolis has been around for about 20 years, highly successful in training people in technology. They originally started out in refurbishing PCs, which is still a business they actually do, and over the last few years under the guidance of Plinio, they have, there's wonderful people at Perscolis, but another really great person there is a woman named Angie Kamath, who is guiding the New York expansion, and their vision for how they can move into more career-based roles for the graduates that are skills-based and long-term careers are really kind of worked out nicely with the introduction of the software testing program, because it's a great career for people to come into, because as we know in software testing, a lot of people come at it from all sorts of different backgrounds, and there's no real straight path into it. So they've trained thousands of people in the Bronx, in Columbus and Cincinnati. They're in Washington. They're opening in Dallas. And they've had a very, very, very high level of success. I believe it's 85% plus success rate of getting people good paying technology jobs that are sustainable. And because of that, they were selected to join the Vice President's workforce task force on workforce development. So they've been connected with the White House, and they're very connected into the state governments and city governments where they are, and have been highlighted as a program that works really well. And I think one of the underpinning factors that I've seen, and some of the differences in what I've seen in the workforce development programs and some of the coding boot camps and things that I've seen been exposed to over the last year is part of Perscolis's ethos is meet people where they are. And I think that's, obviously literally and figuratively. They are in the neighborhoods where folks are going to live and work. And they also meet people where they are in terms of their career, their development, and they do a phenomenal job in working with folks and getting them up to where they need to be from a life coaching perspective, all sorts of different elements to this that I'm not really qualified to talk about, but that's part of the great thing about the relationship is that they focus on finding me great people, and then we focus on training them in testing and then getting them jobs. And they've been incredibly successful on their end of that, and have really been very entrepreneurial with us in terms of ideas. When I originally approached Perscolis's board about developing this as a business, they came up with 3 or 4 different ideas on how we could do that without hesitating really for a minute. They wanted to go for it, which is a fantastic partner to have. And one of their elements of their success has been working with businesses to identify what are the real skills that you need. And one of the issues that I've seen in my brief exposure to workforce development is that there seems to be an over-focus on resume development and working with employers' requirements or their job openings. And if anything that we know as buyers in this business or as employers is that there's nothing worse written than a job spec. It very rarely contains the actual skills that you need, and a lot of the compromises you can make to find somebody to do the right job. And so by developing relationships with the actual businesses, they've done a great job in connecting people, and that's one of the things that really attracted me to them. So Dorian Jones, real briefly, started in 2010. I was working as a consultancy and doing contracting work as well. Has a really great client list already before I joined as a partner. The folks that we've brought into the testing practice as well as the development side, our model really focuses on the skills-based community where people are practitioners, can get their hands dirty, and have a wide range of experience. And our pyramid, our hiring pyramid, really isn't that much of a pyramid. We have really experienced folks, some great leads, and then particularly on the software testing side, we are staffing up with the Perscolis grads. And even before I joined, the firm had spent a lot of time focusing on skill development and business analysis and really driving out value for clients. We do a lot of agile development and agile coaching for firms. And the other great thing about Dorian Jones, which was there before I joined, is that it has a board that is very committed to community reinvestment, folks that are very philanthropic with their own money, and that and because of that and the work we've been doing with Perscolis, we've also been invited to the Workforce Development Accelerated Learning Program Task Force. And what that basically means is that we are working with the Office of Science and Technology on being able to demonstrate the value of accelerated learning programs. So there's some new things that are going to be coming out hopefully shortly, that we can talk more about. But as well, there's a huge gap in, particularly if you take a sector like returning veterans. And I learned a lot about this a month ago or so in Washington, is that the training that they need in order to get through, to get technology jobs, typically is not able to be paid for through GI bills and other government assistance, because those programs, like dev boot camps, are not accredited in a way that the U.S. government or the Department of Education recognizes. And they've been fairly skeptical of the boot camp community, the dev boot camp community, and these short 6 to 8 week training programs, and to learn a programming language, due to some of their experience that they've had with the University of Phoenixes of the world, or these for-profit colleges that have taken lots of money from the veteran community and don't really get a better result in terms of employment for them. So they're rather skeptical of that. And one of the things that we have with the software testing education program is we teach the folks rapid software testing, which by their definition is an accelerated learning program, and has a, I think 14-year existence that we can draw on to give examples and start to look at how folks are utilizing those skills on the job. So they're very interested in what we're doing with this. The other two things that we've got in our favor is some fantastic partners that have really gone above and beyond in helping first develop the STEP class, and secondly, working with us as an employee partner, and that's SmartBear, my dear friend Lorinda Brandon up there, who I think has moved officially full-time into the API world, but when she was working with us through the STEP program, was tireless in her help and assistance and doing training and advocating for us with SmartBear to get the folks in the STEP program training on tools and access to tools, and really just being an advocate for us out in the community. And then our other fantastic partner that we have, which really dovetails nicely into our approach to testing, is QA Symphony, who Josh and Vu and Dave at QA Symphony have been fantastic. And again, letting the students train on real-world tools that they can use in the lab before they get out onto a client site, but as well been great for advocating with us in the community and supporting us in Atlanta, where they're based, and working with us on projects. So it's really been a fantastic experience with people supporting that. But I think a lot of that is underpinned because it's an actual business model. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So how does this partnership work? The Urban Development Center, and in the outsourcing business, centers that provide services that are not on your premise are typically called offshore development centers. And so what we have termed ours is the Urban Development Center. So we have a 15,000 square foot facility, which is just about to be, the groundbreaking has started, and we're just about to start all the fitting and everything else to basically turn that 15,000 square foot facility into a technology center in the Bronx. And then we have the second floor above that, which is a 30,000 square foot facility, which as demand comes on, we will kit that out just as we would do if we were building a center in India or the Ukraine or China. And so how this has worked is that and a side point to that is that Dorian Jones is actually relocating our headquarters to the Bronx as well. So right now we're based in Manhattan, and we will be moving our corporate headquarters to the Bronx as well. But the way this has worked in terms of a funding model, which is part of the great thing about this, is we've partnered with Partner Perscolis, is that they have, in order to compete with offshore facilities, you need to be price point competitive with them, and there's lots of advantages that local governments and national governments give to organizations. So if you're talking about some of the big 5 consulting firms, when they go out to India, they'll set up a special economic zone around the building. They'll set and give no taxes. They'll give buildings. They'll give free land. There's all sorts of things that come with that as long as they build in their area, and that makes it incredibly difficult to compete with that unless you're going to build out basically in the middle of the country in the U.S., which then you've got issues around a draw for talent. So some companies have been successful in drawing talent into those, but my personal belief and some experience with that is that the talent pool is rather limited, and then as well you really develop key exposures to single clients. So you're going to have some concentration risk. If your biggest client decides to move out of wherever you are in the US, middle of the U.S., you're very exposed to fluctuations in that market, and if the people move out, what are you going to do then? So having the ability to draw from a wider labor pool, and as well having access to a greater client list, is one of the big advantages of doing this in an urban area. And so in order to compete with the pricing, I don't want to pass through a lot of the capital outlays to build that facility to my clients. And because we're not a big 5 consulting company, we had to be creative about how to get that done. And so what we did was Perscolis went out, and through all their connections through the J.P. Morgan Chase Foundation, Bloomberg, Barclays gave a bunch of money, the Robin Hood Foundation gave a lot of money to Perscolis to do the build out. So they signed the lease on the 15,000 square foot facility, fundraised for the build out. We are then subleasing the space back from them and paying them back through a 25% profit share over the next 10 years. And so what that does is that I can deflate my overall charges to clients, that we're not cheaper, but we are price competitive, and with all the other operational savings that you get by being 20 minutes away from Manhattan, it's a very attractive offer for folks. And that 25% profit share is a big commitment on our part and is not dependent once the money is paid back. So at the rate of if 150 people are in the facility for, I think less than a year, we pay back most of the capital outlay, but the 25% profit share continues ad infinitum. And so we put that in there contractually. So what they've agreed to do is continually find us a pipeline of people that can do project work from the Bronx. And what we've committed to is that, 1, the profit share, 2, we've signed a sublease, 3, we've agreed to hire 80% of the folks that are in the Bronx will have come through the workforce development program, through STEP. And what that means is that we're not committing that 80% of the people that come through a class get jobs. What we've said is that if they get through our interview and they've done successful in the program, they have a chance at one of those jobs. But what we've committed to is that 80% of them will have come through the workforce development program. We're also guaranteeing starting salaries for people with benefits. The average person who starts with Perscolis, their average annual income is about $7,000, and we have a guaranteed salary income for them to start at $35,000 a year plus comp and benefits on top of that. And as well, we're also providing them with guaranteed raises 2 years after that. And what we're also doing is giving them exposure to, we think if within 2 years of working with us and our experts that we have, and I'm talking about Paul Holland, James Bach, Michael Bolton have all personally taught courses, the folks, myself, the folks that we've got in terms of our leads, that in 2 years they're going to be incredibly marketable, having gone through rapid software testing, rapid testing intensive, our introduction to software testing courses, all our lab work, and being able to be coached and mentored by our testing practice, they're going to be extremely attractive to the market in 2 years' time without having to have a college degree. The requirement to get into Perscolis is that you have a GED or a high school diploma or a GED. And that's a tremendous opportunity for folks to get into great entry-level technology jobs and get experience working alongside some of the best folks in the business. So we think that's a great model of success for them to have a long career in software testing. So when we go and talk to people about our business and about the Urban Development Center, we don't lead with that. But this is what we've got, probably close to 11 million US in new revenue booked for next year. And that's just really just been selling it from February, and the facility's not even built yet. So we've had quite a bit of interest in our model. And when we go and talk to people about our relationship with Perscolis and the Urban Development Center, we don't sell on the social story. And the reason why we do that is the reason why we don't do that is that if we went and sold on the social story, it would turn what we're doing into a charity, which it is definitely not. We are a business. We have a for-profit model. We will pay a profit share with Perscolis. So the idea is to create a social enterprise that has a for-profit angle to it. And we really look at what we're doing is disruptive in kind of 3 different ways. The first one being, we feel that by focusing at Dorian Jones on context-driven testing and the folks that we're hiring, we want to be a positive disruptor in that space. And if you look at our biggest prospect for next year, which we actually just closed, they sought us out specifically, not for Perscolis, not for the Bronx, but specifically because we can provide better software testing than what they currently have. And that's really important to us as a business, is that we are looked at as thought leaders in this space, and that's why people are talking to us. So when we talk to clients and we talk to prospects, we talk about how we test software, the team that we have, the approach, rapid software testing, and how that's different to what they're currently getting by the large factory school vendors that they typically are engaged with. And so that's a big part of what we're doing. So this is what people are buying for us. And I'll go through this list, and it's almost in order. When I was putting this together, it's almost in order of what people actually talk to us about. And the first one being obviously about how we do testing. And I won't go into detail about context-driven testing and about rapid software testing, but we have a whole wealth of people on the development side as well, patent holders that have got 20 plus years in financial services, can do agile coaching and development, that are on our development side as well. But the crown jewels of the testing community are supporting us, and I think have been very, very critical of the testing industry in general. And so kind of threading that needle and making sure that we're maintaining the integrity of what we do. If you know who these folks are, they would not typically abide the cheapening of their craft. So getting that stamp of approval on what we do and how we coach people and how we deliver testing is super important to us, because we feel that the majority of why people are going to buy from us is on a quality play. It'll be because we're better at software testing. So having the people is important. The approach that we take, which I just talked about, there's still, even to this day, and just having taken a time warp last week into a couple talks about metrics and the test case counting, and our industry has not, it's gotten better, but I really feel like it has not significantly grown a whole lot by and large, particularly where the majority of testing services are provided. And if you look at who those firms are, they really have a big investment in keeping things in a factory approach where we've got, high volume, low margin business models that support the kind of, I call it the QA army. And that is still the prevalent approach in our business. And in our business, I'm categorizing that as, yet again, enterprise IT. And that's a huge issue. And there's massive quality problems with that. And getting dashboards and getting metric scorecards and balance scorecards and all the other coloring in activities that that manage those businesses is not delivering value to our clients, and the certification aspects to that, and we can put dogma aside, but they do genuinely mask over quality problems. And I think there's a real appetite to do different things. And so what we've said is, put us head to head with people, and we have one business on testing challenges where we said, put us up against your current vendor, and we'll both test the same thing, and you tell us which approach you like better. And we've won business that way. Moving further down the list, I think our combination that we have, and I think it's kind of turning the recruitment model on its head a little bit. And as people meet the STEP grads, and I've had this multiple times where people will put them up in front of folks, and they're like, wow, how long has he been testing? And we're like, he hasn't yet. He's just been through our training program, and they've just been through, our labs, and people are blown away with the approach and the thoughtfulness of how they've been trained and how their approach to task. And we really feel like that's going to turn a lot of this on its head in terms of what testing is and what is expected. So for us, kind of positively disrupting the testing industry is a big part of this. We feel like as well the other kind of disruption is around the way nonprofits work with profits and for-profit companies. And there's an element of this that's creating a social enterprise, but we're not a joint venture. We haven't created a third entity. What we have is a partnership. And Perscolis wants to stay in the Perscolis business, and Dorian Jones wants to stay in the Dorian Jones business. And as long as we focus on what we're good at and share in the profits, that's a very different model, in my experience, than to what's currently happening, particularly in workforce development and specifically in technology. And so we really see that is going to disrupt the social enterprise nonprofit business. And when we get out and talk about what we're doing, people are very intrigued by it because it's really not being done in a whole lot of places. And I think the third thing we're really looking to disrupt is, what does it really mean to invest in urban renewal? And there's a massive opportunity, and it ties directly into outsourcing and offshoring, where you look at like a city like New York, in the Bronx, which is, I think, have been very underdeveloped for a long time and uninvested in. And there's a massive opportunity there to do work like what we're doing. And what we're finding is that that's not obviously isolated just to New York. You can look at cities like Chicago, Detroit. We're talking to Dallas right now, and every city has some area that they could reinvest in. And I think the idea of creating tech corridors in those areas was not something that people had thought. And we're hoping that that's kind of the third aspect of our disruption on this. Moving further down the list, the attrition aspect, we feel like there's going to be people who have long, fruitful careers with Dorian Jones or as testers or move into other fields eventually, but the core skills that they're developing through the STEP program and by working with us translate to all sorts of other technology disciplines, and that's a big part of what we see. People are attracted to it. The logistical side, as we build out the facility, particularly, and this is another aspect that people are starting to pick up on with us, is being 20 minutes away from a major city. You're 6 stops, I think, from Grand Central at Cypress Avenue. You can do morning stand-ups as a team and then head back to your office. It's commutable and not in a, we got to go spend the day. You can be highly interactive with folks, and as people are really looking at, you know what, this just isn't working with distributed agile or agile at scale, and people are really looking for alternatives to, one, their space issues, and two, not having to have distributed teams. If they're doing small iterative development, there's a lot of opportunity there for large enterprises to take advantage of that. So what are we going to do next? Obviously, we've got a book of work that we're delivering on, and we are going to continue to deliver over the course of next year. We are on target to have the New York UDC up and running by spring. It's had a little contractual delay with various things, but such is the life of building out in a major urban area. But we're on target to launch into spring, which is the first 150 seats, and our corporate office, so we'll be based out of there. The goal is to have, we've just won some work down in Florida, so we are going to build out a UDC down in Tampa. And then look at the third location. We've been talking to a few other cities about that. Fundraising the same model through those and building out step programs in those cities. We are also next year, I think, as we get the facility completed and people can come and see it and visit it, and we can launch new services from the facility. We've had some significant interest from some large corporate social responsibility programs that are looking at being kind of marquee client partners for this. If you look at, when I was at Barclays in the testing program there, I don't know what the number is now, but at one point there was about 1,700 testers. You move, there was, I think as well, about maybe 25,000 people in IT at one point in the investment bank alone. You move, 250 jobs for one of those organizations. It's not significant. You put 250 good-paying technology jobs into the South Bronx, that's going to literally change that neighborhood. And I think people are starting to see that, as we deliver on some of these projects we've talked about, and people see the quality of the service, and that it's not just a straight social charity enterprise, that they actually get better software testing out of it and better development out of it. We've got a couple large marquee clients that are working their way through the philanthropic aspect of their business to make big investments in this. And so we're anticipating a couple large, what we call client partners, that get both sides of this. Right now we're just doing straight technology sell, but we think at some point somebody's going to get on the philanthropic side and support us in a really big way there. And again, we've really just started. We've gotten a lot of press so far, but as we get the facility built and get some more press and success stories out there, I want to be very transparent about what's working, what's not working, and I'm really looking forward to developing a lot of those case studies and publishing them. We're anticipating that we'll get some more work beyond that. And we can do project work from there. We've already had a couple clients ask us for bids, project work when the facility's up and running that they would have given to an Indian or offshore partner. So we're going to be competing directly with some of the big guys in this business. And then I think as well, once we get the model down right, and we've got folks in there and all the services are running, as part of the kind of give back on this is to create I'm calling it a UDC working group, but kind of all these folks that I've met in government agencies and other cities, and create kind of a UDC in a box and say, here's how the model works, here's our lessons learned, and work with other cities on or other testing groups or testers that are looking at developing similar programs, and host a summit on that, and basically get everybody together and say, here's the case study, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, here's how we think you can set something up like this similarly in your town. And as well, we've actually had quite a great deal of interest internationally as well. So I know they run similar workforce development. The UK has similar workforce development targets that they want to do, and Australia does, and we've had probably half a dozen countries reach out to us to say, hey, yes, once you guys develop this model, will you share it with us so that we can do some of the work ourselves? And I think that's a great thing. So with that, I think I'm done. And thank you very much. I really appreciate you indulging me talking about what has become a little bit of a passion of mine, and if you would have asked me a year ago or told me a year ago this is what I'd be doing, I would have said you were nuts. But I think it wasn't what I thought I was going to be doing, but it's exactly what I needed to be doing. So thank you for indulging me, and I will pass back over to Dara and move to the forum for any questions.
Thank you very much, Keith, for that presentation. Let me just open up my slides here again very briefly. Yeah, sorry, my second, but I think we're back in action. Okay, so before we head over to Test Huddle, I just want to make you aware of some more webinars that we have coming up next week. And the first webinar we have here, oops. Now, apologies for that interruption there. So the first webinar we have next week is with Natalie Van Delft, and she'll be presenting Travel Guide to Eurostar. And this is great if you're a first-time attendee at this year's conference, or if you just want to find out what's going to happen at the conference or you want some more information, please feel free to attend this webinar. And the next webinar we have then on Thursday is with Donal Morris, CEO of Redzine, and he will be presenting open access testbed facilities available for software testing companies in Europe. So now let's just head over to Test Huddle and look at some of the questions you might have. I'm going to share with you once more as well the link to the discussion. And you should have the link there now in your chat box. Thank you very much again, Keith, for the presentation. And thanks to all attendees. The webinar is now over, and we will see you again soon. Oh, and finally, sorry, just to remind you as well, those webinars that I mentioned, if you want to register for those webinars, please visit the Events tab over on Test Huddle, and you will see there on the Events tab the links that will bring you through to the registration page for these webinars. Okay, so we'll now see you over on Test Huddle. Thank you all, and goodbye.